obviously things aren't great right now with a 4-game losing streak and 5 consecutive Big 12 losses. There have been a number of injuries and now some COVID issues creeping their way in there too. How much does that change the way that you evaluate it and look at what the recent losing streak has been like for the men's basketball team?
It's absolutely a part of it. You have to look at everything. And the one thing I noticed, and I noticed it before, and actually people who aren't even as familiar with our team have commented, boy, your kids battle. They never give up. They keep working hard. And to me, that says a lot about the character of this team. I'll be honest with you, it said a lot for the character of the team to go out against Oklahoma State, knowing that, we were down as far as we were in terms of manpower. So those are also parts of it as well. And then they're learning, and it's still a young team. And I know people get tired of me hear me say that, but you've got one senior, a couple of sophomores, and a whole bunch of freshmen that are still learning the game at this level against opponents that obviously are very, very good. So, but a lot of that's going to be part of the evaluation: is our injuries, is our COVID, is our youth, and are we getting better? I think we are. And we're battling, and it says a lot about the character and the effort of this team.
I know that Bruce mentioned after the Oklahoma State game that he was somebody pretty staunchly in support of making the scholarship player threshold 7 or 8, I think is what he was pitching, and obviously it has become 6. Where did you fall as far as that discussion was concerned?
Yeah, I pushed for 7. I talked to Bruce quite a bit about it. I knew 8 was probably not going to be the number. Just from listening to the AD's talk, I really felt that we could make it 7 because you got 7 scholarship, and all of a sudden, if you do have an injury like we did against Oklahoma State, you still got 6 scholarship kids or foul trouble. I thought 6 was a number that was going to challenge a lot of us, and apparently it has with the recent cancellations or postponements. But it landed on 6. I voted against it, and we lost. I mean, I don't remember what the vote was, but the majority felt they wanted to play the games and get them in, and that's why they went with 6.
How tough of a decision was making the move to take the Stanford game from Manhattan and put it in AT&T Stadium in Arlington?
Well, it's never an easy decision taking a game like that from your home stadium, and the fact that our fans really enjoy that. But when we started looking at the financial side of things and the fact that it's in Dallas, we have a big group of alumni from there, and just it's a recruiting area, so it just kind of added up. All was just, and then plus we had 7 games. If we wouldn't have had 7 games, 8 games total, but if we wouldn't have had 7 and other ones at home, I don't know that we would have moved it simply because it would have left us with only 6 games.
Yeah, Gene Taylor talking with me here, and this is something you got that have been in the works for a while. It sounds like. How close did it get to happening before the pandemic actually hit?
Well, it kind of stalled because of the pandemic, but it also stalled because the Cowboys, Stanford, there was kind of a 3-legged stool there working on it, and then there was the issue of the sponsorship of this actual game. It was somebody else before, and Cowboys entered into a new agreement, and then that took a while. So I think the general principle of the agreement was done, a few months ago, but to finalize everything, get it signed, took a little bit longer than we thought.
And I guess part of the reason I asked that is because I just wonder aloud here how differently it would have been received if there would have been less pushback to it had it actually occurred and been finalized pre-pandemic as opposed to now in the pandemic. It sounds like the main criticism that at least I see and hear out there is, hey, taking away a home game from businesses that could be benefiting from the extra business that would be here, assuming that there would be close to full attendance for that game. How do you balance, as an athletic department and an athletic director, what it is, how much you owe, I guess, quote unquote, the community in that respect versus trying to take care of yourself and worrying about the money that you guys have lost throughout the pandemic?
Well, that's a fine balance, but again, I go back to the fact that we still have 7 games at home, which is our typical year, right? And is the Stanford game going to be a automatic sellout? No, it's obviously Labor Day weekend, and that's a big weekend. But I think we're still the businesses. If everything's somewhat back to normal, you're still going to see the majority of the hotels and the restaurants and. So, but again, if it had only been a 6-game season by taking Stanford, it would have been a lot more challenging, I think. But with a 7-game season, I still think we get, a lot of the same benefits of a normal 7-game season on a regular year.
Talking right now with Gene Taylor, how much of a consideration was there in this, too, that it may not be that we have full attendance by September 4th? I know that's not something anybody really wants to hear right now, but I would think that makes it even more enticing to move the game, because if it's not a situation where you can have full attendance, then there's less economical impact here in Manhattan and ticket sales and all of that.
Yeah, that's, that is, when we first started the conversation, obviously the pandemic wasn't even in the picture, right? And so that wasn't even, other than the fact that other things that I mentioned about the alumni there, the fact we recruit there. But obviously when we got into the pandemic, it was almost, I hate to say it, somewhat of a no-brainer at that point because of the financial consideration. If we were to have limited crowds again or no crowds, certainly that guarantee is a lot of money that would be helpful.
Gene Taylor is talking with me here, and you mentioned $2.2 million is around what you would guesstimate the net will be from this, and that $500,000 would be a typical home game, an average home game. With the difference, is that you still feel like that is really what the difference would be there? I know some have challenged, hey, if there's not a guarantee that you're paying to Stanford, that could throw off the money there. I guess what do you anticipate the difference would be had the Stanford game been at home versus now having it out there with the guaranteed money?
Yeah, I still think there was a small home and home, like $300,000. I don't know. I wasn't that familiar with the Stanford original contract. But, by the time you're still going to net, even if you don't pay Stanford, you're probably still only going to net $750,000, maybe $800,000 without the guarantee. Your expenses are still the same. You still got traffic control and staff and et cetera. So, okay, even if it's $1 million net, you're still netting $1 million more by taking the game on the road. So, it's a significant amount, and that's why, again, the decision was not easy, but that amount of money that you can put into your bottom line is certainly nothing to sneeze at.
I was interested to see that Kellis Robinette had supplemented his story on Twitter with the nugget that Arrowhead was a place that was, in some way, at least interested in making this happen. How far along did discussions get there, and is that something you guys have considered closely, was taking a game to Arrowhead?
Yeah, no, Arrowhead has been talking to us basically when I first got here. I went up and met everybody up there, and, they started looking at potential games for us, when I first got here. We just never really could land on anything, and then when we started looking at Stanford, obviously we reached out to them, and they were certainly interested. The financials were way different, and obviously a game there. We've had games there before. I think Iowa State a couple years ago, and I still think it's a possibility to look at that as an option. But it's not something we want to do every year or every even couple of years. It's something that would come along in the right timing and maybe the right opponent before we, get into a habit of doing this.
Are you open to doing another neutral site game? It sounds like maybe it would have to be at least a couple years down the road. Where are you at on that right now?
Yeah, nothing that we've looked at or really even talked about. But again, as we look for ways to generate new revenue and additional revenue, and if there's something were to come along that made sense, again, we'd certainly take a look at it. But I don't want to be every 2 years saying, hey, let's go find a neutral game, or every 3 years. I think it has to be almost kind of happen naturally like this one did. But, Kansas City makes sense. for us to have a game there before our fan, if we're going to move it. And again, the Dallas thing with the number of alumni we have there is another reason that we took it there.